All right, so we are live on Facebook and YouTube now. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Tirun Saranai, blessings of the Noble Triple Gem. I would like to bring greetings to all the venerable monks and nuns and to all our lay devotees who joined on Zoom platform, and also to our friends who are watching us on Zoom, on YouTube and Facebook Live. Before we introduce our monks and nuns to our audience, let us pay our respect and homage to the Buddha by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times together. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. I pay my respect and homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened Buddha. Dear venerable bhikkhus and bhikkhunis and friends, welcome to our bi-weekly sutra discussion. So last time, 2 weeks ago, we had a very interesting discussion and heated discussion regarding a question asked by the most venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, the Vesak events, the birth, enlightenment, and the passing away of the Buddha that we celebrate on Vesak Day, whether it happened exactly on the same day in the month of May. So it was quite interesting, and Bhikkhu Bodhi kind of took us through the calculation. And so at the end, everything became clear. And the conclusion was, it doesn't really matter though it happened on full moon day or not, the 3 events. What is really interesting is the celebration, the teachings of the Buddha. And then a few days ago, I talked to the most venerable Hena Pula Gururatana, Nayaka Mahatera. Simply, we call him Bante Ji. And his answer was, he said, well, these 3 events took place on 3 full moon days. That would be his answer. But it's good to celebrate these 3 great events of the Buddha's life on the same day. So then he said that this time he was giving Dhamma talks on the topic of what makes the Buddha great. And he kind of asked me whether I could have the same discussion for this bi-weekly discussion. So here we are. And for today's discussion, we have the presence of Venerable Tidau from Florida. And we have Venerable Dhammadina from Virginia. And we have Venerable Saranapala Thero from Vancouver. And we have Bante Kusala from Mississauga, Toronto. We have Venerable Horana Anuruddha Thero joining from Cambridge, Ontario in Canada. We have Bante Pemaratana joining us from Pittsburgh, USA. And then we have Venerable Nalaka joining from California. Then we have Venerable Kotopola Sumedha joining us from Ottawa. Then we have Bante Jinananda joining us from, I think, Sri Lanka. It must be early morning for normally you live in Ottawa, but it's so happy to see you in typical, I think it's early morning for you, right? It should be now 4:30 or 3:30, something like that. 4:30. Yeah. And then we have Venerable Shanta Sobana joining us from Los Angeles. And we have Bante Varapanyo. Bante Varapanyo, where are you?
I am in Los Angeles also.
You're in Los Angeles. I know you travel a lot. So happy to have you today. And then we have few lay devotees who also joined us on Zoom platform. So today's topic is also very interesting, what makes Buddha great. This is an open discussion. I think we monks and nuns sometimes we say because we follow the Buddha and his teachings and we are disciples of the Buddha, so we have the tendency of talking about all the great qualities of the Buddha. And today, as we discuss on this topic, and I think we have to talk about how we personally see the Buddha, and why do we think he's a great human being, and what is so great about him? Maybe some special characteristics of the Buddha, some special qualities of the Buddha, and maybe we can tell some stories to our audience, particular stories that made the Buddha great. If you have engineering background, using your engineering knowledge, and how do you see the Buddha? If you have the psychology or neuroscience or science background, and how do you see the Buddha as a scientist, as a psychologist, as a neuroscientist, and what makes the Buddha so great? So this is an open question. And so I would like to throw this question to our audience, and whoever raises the hand first, I would let that monk and nun go first. So anyone who would like to begin? I normally ask Bhante Kusala to begin the discussion. If no one is raising the hand, Bhante Kusala, feel free to go ahead.
Thank you, Bhante. I was ready.
Yeah.
What makes the Buddha great? The first thing that, this is an amazing discussion. This is going to be an amazing discussion.
Yeah.
What I meant is that the topic is amazing. It is open-ended, so I'm sure our venerable monks and nuns will have so much to share. To begin with, I thought I will say this unique statement by the Buddha. He said, I'm not the first Buddha who has come upon earth, nor shall I be the last.
Yeah.
So he said, in due time, another Buddha will arise in the world, a holy one, a supremely enlightened one, endowed with wisdom in conduct, embracing the universe, an incomparable leader of men, a ruler of devas and maras. He will reveal to you the same eternal truths that I have taught to you. He will establish his law, which is Dhamma, glorious in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. In perfect letters and words, he will proclaim a righteous life, holy, perfect, and pure, such as how I now proclaim. His disciples will number many thousands, while mine number many hundreds. And then the Buddha's attendant monk, Ananda, asked, how shall we know him? The Buddha said, he will be known as Maitreya. So this is what the Buddha said, and this makes the Buddha great because he doesn't want to take the credits that he's the only Buddha appearing in the world. So he doesn't. I think that really inspires me that the world had a great Buddha, and he allowed to question him. Like in Vimansaka Sutra, he even tells us, how to examine any religious teacher, not just him. So that is brave of him to say such a thing. And let me bring your attention to something that we always chant. When we chant Itipiso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho, the 9 qualities of the Buddha, in that we find Bhagava, the Blessed One. And then right after chanting the 9 qualities, we go to Swakhato Bhagavato Dhammo. That too connects with the Buddha, the Dhamma of that Blessed One. And we go to the 9 qualities of the Sangha, Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho. So the disciples of that Blessed One, that too connects with the Buddha. So there is a thread, kind of a connection of the Buddha, and there is Dhamma because of the Buddha, there is Sangha because of the Buddha. And I think that is so unique, and many writers, especially when they write Pali poems, they observe that connection and they go on to say something about the Buddha, something about the Dhamma connecting with that first verse, and then to the third line again connecting with the Buddha. So that makes it unique that we always prioritize the Buddha, and when we say triple gem, we say the Buddha first, Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. When we want to say may you be blessed by the Buddha, so we always say something like Buddha bless you. So we take refuge in the Buddha first, and without him there won't be any existence of the other refuges for us. So that makes the Buddha so unique, so great. And I think we can go on to talk about the 9 qualities of the Buddha, but I don't want to take too much time in the very beginning. I will invite this, I open this, let other venerables speak. Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante Kusala, for your opening remarks regarding the greatness of the Buddha. And I think we have all these learned venerable monks and nuns who have the different backgrounds, actually, different training, education, who received education as who specialized in philosophy, psychology, engineering, and you. Some of you actually joined the Sangha later on after great understanding of the Dhamma. And that actually I would like to know from your own perspective. And I know Venerable Shanta Sobana from Los Angeles raised his hand. And I know Venerable Shanta Sobana has a good grab of the knowledge of yoga and all this Tai Chi, and also Ayurveda medicine. And I think you have a different perspective. Venerable Shanta Sobana, what do you think?
So thank you very much, Venerable Sirs, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. So actually here, I wanna give some different information regarding the Buddha, because regarding the Buddha, there are some informations we can find, and by Buddha himself, he mentioned about the Buddha's qualities. And then after that, all the enlightened masters explain about the Buddha's qualities. But here through my journey, as you mentioned, that especially with the martial art and the yoga, when I go through that journey, what I understood, that in the Buddha's character, that he had the one of the best quality that even ourselves we can absorb and we can nourish our life through that. What I want to mention, that he had the ability to give the opportunity or give the chance to each and everyone in an equal way, whoever come to him. That's a very beautiful way of harness with the universe or the living beings. So because when it comes to most of our life, that especially with the yoga, it's mostly developed the self-centered mind. And everybody try to think, oh, I am the one, you know. And even in the martial art also the same. Everybody try to claim, oh, I am the best, I am the best. And even sometimes, you know, with the grandmasters we used to practice, and each and everyone try to keep the student as a students. It's very difficult to get the opportunity, you know. It's a very difficult to get the chance, you know. And as monks, even we know through our own life, and sometimes I had a lot of friends with me, and some of them disturbed, you know. The very reason was it was very difficult for them to get the chance even inside the temple, you know. And so that's why I think that if we understand that quality from the Buddha, whoever came to him without any resistance or without any judgment, without any kind of hindrance, that he gave the best opportunity and the best position for that whoever the person, you know. So I think that every day, and personally myself, I try to practice that quality. Whoever come to me, you know, I always try to, it doesn't matter for me. I always detach myself from the position, whatever I hold. I always give the best position for that person to be there. Because I learned it through this journey, and I understood how difficult it is. And at the same time, I understood that how blissful that kind of opportunity, if anyone can receive. So that is one thing in personally. Every day I reflect on the Buddha's qualities, and when I see the character of him. Another thing is always that through the Buddha, even he before he attained to the Buddhahood, that from the Prince Siddhartha, when the day he left the palace to his whole journey, there was something that very special, and it always, you know, helped for me through my life. That was self-motivation. Without telling from anyone, that even just imagine that when he ready to leave the palace, it was his own decision, and no one told him, okay, you have to do this or that, kind of like that way. Even with the 5 ascetics, when he go through that all the ascetic practice, he understood this doesn't work for me, and then himself he used to take a decision. That self-motivation is a very important for today. Just imagine around the world, and we always need to push people and tell people, guide people, and try to always, you know, mention things to do, even, you know, in day-to-day life. But when it comes to the Buddha's qualities, that one of the things that he's in his personal life, through his character, I always look at the self-motivation and giving the best chance and giving the opportunities for others.
And I say that's the key word that you use, self-motivation. Without, I think, as we learned from the Buddha biography or the chronology of the Buddha, he received this self-motivation not only in this lifetime, from the time of the Buddha Dipankara, right? So
Yes.
he got motivated, and then he renounced everything. Then he said, okay, this is what I want to become. So that's a key word. I think this is a very interesting point. This is a great quality of a great human being. So now let's move to, okay, we have Venerable Horana Anuruddha joining from Cambridge. I know Anuruddha Bhante, you have an engineering background, right? And I know I also have another Bhante Ananda, who also has an engineering background. So I think from your perspective, how do you see the Buddha? What do you think, what makes the Buddha great?
Thiran Sarnai, everybody. First of all, I really would like to thank you, Bhante Sarnapala. This is a really great topic and really interesting topic, as Bhante Kusala and other Bhantes highlighted. Because and also Bhante Sarnapala highlighted, I joined to the monkhood later on at the age of 37. I ordained as a Buddhist monk about 5 years ago at the age of 37. So I came across in lay life 37 years, and I studied in engineering. And this topic I see as why the Buddha great for me, because it's because of my understanding that Lord Buddha has taught us and showed the path that Lord Buddha has showed us. And also Bhante, the previous Bhante Santa Sobhana highlighted so many qualities about Lord Buddha, and those are really great qualities. So I look at that the thing. How can we come to that point? Because the Lord Buddha have that qualities because of he understood the everything about the mind and the everything about the suffering. Because of that, he get rid of all the kind of suffering and he overcome the ego. That is why he can be whatever he wants to be. And because of the ego that he doesn't have that ego at all. That in enlightenment, we get rid of the ego part. So when you don't have that, you can be whatever you want, because everybody is treated at the same way. So when we look at the path, if you want to understand that thing, so that is why I treat as Lord Buddha as the greatest human being who ever lived, because he explained us a way. Because all the people who was looking for the moksha or the nirvana always trying to do a different thing, but Lord Buddha explained a different thing. So I will explain those two things in a while. So there are a few things that I can highlight in Lord Buddha's Dhamma. One is Iddhapacchata Mula Dharma, that is we call Paticcasamuppada Iddhapacchata. And also he explained us from always, or all the religious leaders and everybody try to taught us something, and most of them try to teach us something, and we get the knowledge out of all those things. But Lord Buddha explained us a different way to understand everything by experience. That is we call Satara Satipatthana or Satya. So that means learning by experience. Always we do other things learning by studying. But Lord Buddha has introduced a new way, learning by experience, that is called Satara Satipatthana and Satya. So those things makes Lord Buddha great for me, and also Four Noble Truth. Lord Buddha asked us to understand the Four Noble Truth, not to learn the Four Noble Truth. Because we can learn the Dhamma and Four Noble Truth and everything out of reading and studying all those things. But when it comes to end the suffering or the psychological suffering, we need to understand all those things. So he showed us a way to understand those things, Dukkha Satya, Dukkha Samudaya Satya, Dukkha Nirodha Satya, and Dukkha Nirodha Gamini Paticca Satya, or Four Noble Truth, by being aware about the experiences you are having in your day-to-day life. That is why he asks us to practice mindfulness or the satya all the times that you are not sleeping, because we can do that all the time. We are having a kind of experience out of our eyes, ears, nose, the tongue, and our six senses. So being aware about those six senses, and also the experience, will make you understand how the suffering happens within yourself. So that makes me to become even to become a monk, because in my life I was always looking for materialistic things and achieving things, and once I achieved something, I again wanted to have something else. So when I come to that age of 35, I have done whatever I wanted to do, everything whatever I wanted to do. So at that point in my life, I look at the world that what next? So it's not, I'm not meaning that I have done everything in the world, but everything I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So when I do that, I come to a point where what next? So then I look at the Dhamma, Lord Buddha's Dhamma. Then only I realize that the happiness that we can achieve is within yourself. The happiness you experience comes from your perspective, your understanding, the way you are looking at something. So it is not something that you can achieve from outside world. It is something that you can achieve within yourself by understanding your mind. So when you understand your mind, you will understand how the suffering happens within yourself. So all the suffering we are having now, the psychological suffering we happening according to your perspective, according to the way that your mental fabrication happening, we call it sankhara. So when you understand that, you can get rid of it. So those are the things. Lord Buddha is the greatest person for me. It is my perspective because of the understanding that I have about the Dhamma. I am having that gratitude towards Lord Buddha as greatest human being who ever lived.
Well, that is a great explanation, Bhante Anuruddha, that you gave from your own experience. And I knew that you were ordained in 30s, and you had another lifestyle. And I'm pretty sure you saw something, and you also had a great engineering background, and you sacrificed that lifestyle and adopted this monastic life because you saw something. Thank you so much for sharing your own experience, how you see the Buddha as a great human being. So now, let's go to Bhante Nalaka. Bhante Nalaka from California. I know Bhante Nalaka, you were not born Buddhist. you were typical lay person, youngster who enjoyed the great life. Maybe you had this rock and roll lifestyle, and what made you to renounce that lifestyle and to adopt this monastic life? And how do you see the Buddha as a great human being?
How do I see the Buddha as a great human being? Buddha Saranai, dear Elder Venerables. I'm happy to be here. I'm quite confident to say that I'm the youngest monk here, going on 3 years in robes. And yes, I lived a very worldly life. And I actually came to Buddhism because I was looking for spirituality that was non-theistic. I went through many years of atheism after being raised in a Christian household that wasn't dogmatic, but everyone there claimed to be Christian. And so there was an assumption that you are saved and that you believe in Jesus Christ, the Lord and Savior. That didn't work for me, being an inquisitive intellectual boy. I pretty much tossed the Bible aside at a young age when I read it completely a few times in the King James English and came to the conclusion that it's made up. But yet, I saw that there was some wisdom in there. This is the theme that is recurrent in my life. Throughout my life, I always knew there's something to religion and spirituality, but I also was inclined towards science. And I discovered in 2016, I went to a Tibetan Buddhist center and a layman there gave an introduction to the life of the Buddha. And I was amazed at just the simple Four Noble Truths, the truth of the Arya, those who have realized the truth of dukkha. And I could feel the dukkha in my life. I wasn't happy, casual dating, making money. And as Bhante Anuruddha said, seeking more and more worldly enjoyment. whining and dining, dating apps culture. I had pretty much every dating app on my phone.
Yeah.
Tinder, OkCupid, all of them. Yet I wasn't happy. I was meeting women on these dating apps and going on dates and so on, but I wasn't happy at the end of the day. I was in the transportation business, working as a limousine driver, enjoying my Lincoln and driving stretch vehicles and Escalades. Yet I was prone to depression. Truth be told, I contemplated killing myself at around the year 2016 prior to discovering the life of the Buddha. A friend of mine told me, named Muhammad, he said, hold on, don't do that. You might end up right back here again. I said, whoa, that hit me. And then I knew a little bit about Buddhism at the time, rebirth. Could I end up here again in the same cycle? So then I began to take Buddhism seriously. I discovered the life of a man who left worldly indulgences, who absorbed himself in pleasures that many of us can't fathom, staying in the pleasure palace, an ancient brothel, if you will, for 4 months, not 3 months, in the traditional Vasa in ancient India. Not once did I come out, Buddha says in the Pali Canon, correct? Not once did I come out of that palace. Yet, he went on to discover a bliss that wasn't dependent upon the cord of sensuality. And then discovered the truth of nirvana, a teaching that was already present in ancient India. And he did all of this without saying you must believe in a one true God named Allah or pick your name. Amazing. A philosophy of mind, a psychology, and a spirituality. Technically a religion, but it's much more than that. All of the above, yet it transcends all of the above terms and concepts. So that's what initially attracted me to the Buddha. I saw right away this individual, and I agree with Venerable Anuruddha, was to me the greatest human being, but more than a human being. I didn't understand that at the time, but beyond the concept of a human being, beyond what we would consider human. Yet, the teachings are practical enough to be accessible to all of us, even though clearly he was born with powers and abilities and a degree of willpower that many of us can't fathom. To be able to stand for a long period of time without sitting down, to lay on the bed of nails, to starve oneself to the point of becoming so skinny that you could touch a spinal cord by touching your belly button. To hold your breath until you reach the brink of unconsciousness. He tried all of these and decided that wasn't the middle way. That wasn't Patipada, Majjhima Patipada. So the doorway to Buddhism, to me, was acknowledging the greatness of the awakened one, Buddha Shakyamuni. And it helped me coming from a background of atheism. However, I can see that if you're a Christian, if you are a Jew, if you come from Hinduism, there's something in Buddhism for everyone, because the essential practices are secular, pre-secular. Before the concept of secularism, you have these free teachings that only require ehipassiko, come and see for yourself. What happens if I sit down and meditate and stop identifying with my thoughts, stop identifying with my desires? Then I begin to taste liberation. If I live with this, I become completely liberated. To be completely liberated is the greatest thing we can do as human beings. So that's what I feel inspired to share. I think Venerable Treedow wants to say something, so perhaps. So sadhu.
Thank you for sharing your experience, Venerable Nalaka. I know there was something that triggered you to choose this path, and you have actually studied not just this tradition, even the Vajrayana tradition, Mahayana tradition. You have teachers from all traditions. So and thank you for sharing your experience with us. And also, I would like to acknowledge the presence of Venerable Tenzin Lama Dakpa. I think he just turned off his video. Here we go, Lama Tenzin Dakpa. Thank you for joining today's discussion. I think you also have something to share with us and how you see the Buddha, what makes the Buddha great. But I will get back to you later. Now let me go to Bhante Ananda Kalubovila. I know, Bhante Ananda, you also have an engineering background. You were highly qualified as an engineer. Later on, you have chosen this path. And I'm pretty sure you have seen something great about the Buddha. What is that? Please unmute yourself. We can.
Venerable Bhantes, I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I share a similar story to Anuruddha Theru and the previous Bhante who spoke. If you take chronologically, I am around 40 plus 40, but if we take the monk years, I'm just 4 years since my ordination.
Yeah.
And so I got into Buddhism at the age of 35. I was born a Buddhist, but I was never a practicing Buddhist. So whatever I know is from the last 4 years, 5 years. So having said that, I would put my points of why I think Buddha is a great person. I would take the enlightenment or the doctrinal part at the end. But before that, why Buddha is so great to me is that if you look into the history and the backdrop of where Buddha appeared in the historical timeline, I used to follow Vedic scriptures a lot because I find it really interesting because I have an interest in philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look into a lot of things in Vedic and other religious scriptures in East and West as well, Hellenic as well as in the East, I find that Buddha appeared in a time where it was called the Upanishad period or the axial age.
Yeah.
Upanishad period has been an enlightening period, and it has not just an enlightening period for a couple of days, but it has been evolving for 1,000 years. So 1,000 years of a lot of philosophical debate and doctrine and discourse is a lot of philosophical backdrop. So why I see Buddha's veneration is that there was been a lot of Upanishad arguments at the time about what moksha is, what enlightenment is.
Mm-hmm.
And Buddha also proposes his path of moksha, his path of enlightenment or nibbana.
Mm-hmm.
And what is very interesting is that being fancying philosophy, I see how Buddha answers all these philosophical debates.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he puts it in a very logical form, where a lot of people cannot find fault with that. So for that matter, I find Buddha to be extremely interesting out of all the doctrines which are available at the time for me to adopt, because I was a fresh book. There was nothing written on me. So I effectively made a choice to become a Buddhist monk and a Buddhist for that matter. And then Buddha's acumen, Buddha's way of handling those logics, different arguments, that was something which made me really interested about Buddha. And the second thing is that I always see whenever a doctrine passes onto the society, it usually takes the path of coming from top down rather than bottom up. We would find Jesus to be someone who arose from the bottom, from the poorest of the people, and then he from the oppressed people, and then he came up, and he's now by far the biggest follower. I mean, most of the people follow Jesus, and even Prophet Muhammad. But I see that Buddha comes from a silver spoon in his mouth, like he's been provided with almost a princeship. And they say if he pursued, he would have been a great king of kings of India. So with that, I find if you look at modern theories like Marxism, Marx and Engels, they represented a particular tier. And if you look at Plato, he was an aristocrat. So a lot of aristocrats, because probably they had food in their plate and they had better things to do, they probably ventured into philosophy and they become philosophers. So likewise, Buddha came from that social strata. And back in the day, I used to work at a company, a multinational company in marketing. And I saw that whenever we take people for advertisements, we would always select people from a certain upclass market, even for down class product. So even if you want to push it to the, there's this thing called the socio-economic classification, A, B, C, D. So if you even want to push a product to SCC D, you would select a model from SCC A. So I think that's a nature of human beings, that you always look up, you look for inspiring things from the upper social strata. So for that matter, I think Buddha deserves to be a Buddha. Now, the other thing is that anyone can come up and say his doctrine, his path of enlightenment, but the social acceptance of that enlightenment is a major question. So for that matter, I think for Buddha to become a Buddha, he had to be born in that particular social level in that time of India. So there's this thing called the Kale, Deshe, Deepe, Kule, Mava, which means Pasmaha Balum, the five, I don't know what's it called in English, the precursors to Buddhahood, probably.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, something like that. And so apart from those being extremely good in philosophy and being able to counter the arguments, and second being coming from a elite aristocratic family, the other part that I really liked about Buddha is the precedence he set as a religious leader. Now, I find it extremely important. In fact, recently I saw on a video that when you become a philosopher and if you want to do a social transformation, you should always make sure that philosophy is based on non-violence, inclusivity, because the people who are going to follow that ideas are not ideal. Now, there's a situation in Sri Lanka, and I see that there's a revolution, etc., etc. So always the people who follow these ideals are not ideal people. They are going to come up and do various type of inhuman things. And I find there's no one single point in Buddha's life story, life of Buddha, where you can find fault in. Like, I don't want to mention certain people, like, let's say, take an old character like Krishna. Like Krishna, in Krishna with Arjuna, discussed the Bhagavad Gita. And if you take it literally, it's sort of, I'm not saying Krishna necessarily did that, but it sort of says, Krishna says to Arjuna, it's your dharma to fight. So if it's your dharma to fight, it's you should fight. And a person who's not so ideal can adopt that discussion and then just resorting to violence. So that gives a sort of a negative precedence. Of course, a person who's more intellectual would understand in a different way, but a person who's not ideal, not intellectual, would understand in a totally wrong way and then resorting to a lot of violence and destruction. But in Buddha's life, you don't find a clue like that where a person can misinterpret. So for that matter, I find Buddha to be great because there's absolute equality in there. There's equality to all the factions of social deities. Although he was born from a upper class, there's equality to everyone. There's inclusivity. And there's this great precedence of non-violence in Buddha's teaching. And a fourth point would be that I find Buddha to be, this is something I fancy. I always fancy people who make social revolutions in a good way, of course. And in doing that, it to become less harmful for the entire human population. So Buddha has been a social reformer that I find a very interesting thing. He has been an equalizer. Like when there's too much of capitalistic ideas, you need a little bit of socialistic ideas to balance it off. So when people were after desire, Buddha comes and say, well, there's an opposing path. Like the previous Bhantes was saying, even including me, that we were going in life looking for materialistic desires. But then there's another path which is opposite to that. So that is a social reform. Apart from that, Buddha opens the Dharma to everyone, his discourse to everyone, where it was only at the time was a elite activity. Doing philosophy, even in Hellenic, even in Chinese, even in Indian, it was an elite activity. But the poorest, most oppressed people like Sunita Sopaka, they came and adopted Buddhism. So I find for that matter, Buddha to be a great equalizer, a social reformer, speaking from a sociological standpoint. And I will make the last point why I personally adore Buddha is because, like I said, until age 35, I even had my status on Facebook as an atheist. because they did not have agnostic as a religious belief. So I was an agnostic person. I have been exposed to a couple of religions, Catholicism, Jehovah's Witness, Hinduism, and Buddhism. But I did not want to pick any of those things because I had a perfect life. I was happy. My life was good. I had my materialistic things and I was enjoying, but it did not, none of them answered me the self-actualization question. So I did not want to effectively brand myself as a Buddhist or a Catholic or whatever. But then I found this great quality. Buddhism stems from the point of agnosticism, which means that instead of trying to push a doctrine to you, push a belief system to you, or push an axiom to you, Buddhism or Buddha asks you to look at your belief system. So I find that is very interesting that every religion that you want to adopt comes with an axiom or a belief system that you necessarily have to adopt. But to me, given that I was not a proper Buddhist, although by name I was Buddhist, it came out really well for me because I did not have to start believing in something, but I could see and I could experience, and then I can adopt it if I want to. So for that matter, I find Buddha to be a great teacher, great person.
Well, yeah, this is a great explanation about Bhante Ananda. You know, I really love how you presented, you know, from your own experience. And the axial age, the 6th century BCE was, of course, it was truly an axial age, where we can see in today's version, we can see it was the kind of a spiritual supermarket. You know, so in that spiritual supermarket, Buddha did not go to impose his ideas, and he simply says, come and see. He gave an open invitation, come and see, and this is what I have become, this is what I did. These are the steps I have followed. So if you want to be like me, and then you can have the freedom to follow that path. I think this is the interesting point that we have brought up. Thank you so much. And next, let's go to Bhante Jinananda from Ottawa, but he's on a visit to Sri Lanka. So it's early morning for him. Bhante Jinananda, so what's your take on today's topic? What makes the Buddha great?
Greeting to all venerables and those friends who join with us in this platform and also through YouTube and Facebook. Thank you, Bhante Sanupala, for this opportunity. Since two more monks has raised their hands, I showed my explanation on the topics, and one of the interesting thing I found to make the Buddha great for my experience is that he came with a plan and he accomplished it as he thought. If you look at the triple anniversaries of the Buddha, simply you can see that as soon as he came with a plan when he was born, and it is uttered like with the words that Aggu Hamas Vilokas and so forth. So he was able to prove his abilities on achieving his plan at the birth, so that he said, I did my job by seeing the truth of my mind, so the world as it is. And when he passed away with a person who accomplished everything. So if you look at his entire life, he was sort of a person or individual who actually worked according to a plan and accomplished everything. This is great for us. I know, Buddha could be appeared to many people as the way people thought about. If you look at the Jataka stories, you can find the Buddha who is very generous and ardent, of course, not as a Buddha, but as an aspirant to Buddha. And if you look at the discourses, the Buddha you see is different from the Jataka stories. And if you look at the folk tales and philosophical aspects, so Buddha could be appeared to many people in different ways, depending on the context they take, as well as their experience. This is how magical this great human or a Buddha, actually, it is amazing. So what make the Buddha great could be understood what he did for attain to enlightenment, because the Buddha himself said about his life based on what he did previously to his enlightenment. So if you look at the biographical suttas like Arya Pariyesana Sutta and also Satchika Sutta, he himself said that this is how I came to the Buddhahood. So what I had been doing was not something else, and like you, I was struggling. However, I found the truth of true struggle. So I think for people like us, it is really important. So Buddhahood, and after attaining the Buddhahood, what he was doing is perfect, but we need to follow the Buddha's Bodhisattva's life, especially from the time he was born to the attainment to enlightenment, because it's a mixture of everything. So I think when we look at the topic, what make the Buddha great, we can understand those important statements of the Buddha. Finally, I just want to say this Dhammapada verse because it tells who he was. He said that Sabba Bibu Sabba Vidu Hamasmi Sabbe Sudamme Swanupalito Sabban Jaho Tanhakyo Vimutto Sayang Abinyaya Kamuduseyang. This says that what he was doing and what he did actually. I have overcome everything. I know everything. I have detached from everything. So when he said that I have overcome everything, that's mean all the defilement, all the problems, all the issues that he was facing. So he overcame all these things. When he said that I know everything, of course, he is a very intelligent, genius person even before he came to the Buddhahood, but he confirmed his knowledge about everything at the attainment to enlightenment. So he said, whatever we need to follow and attain enlightenment. And he detached from everything, which is important. When you release yourself from all the bondage, you are a person who experiences that liberation. So it comes to us when we detach. So he said, I have given up everything. So in order to experience the pleasure and happiness of life, we cannot do it with everything in our hand. So we have to give up them. So he did it, and he tells us to do the same thing. So finally he said, I have liberated from all kinds of troubling issues, which means he attained enlightenment, having completed the Four Noble Truths by myself. So I'm here as the Buddha. So his statements are very clear. As one of the Venerable says, he's a very good example to others. He didn't say anything without experiencing them. He experienced everything and said to disciples to follow. So that I think we are not in a position to talk about every aspect of the Buddha's life, but we are very much in the topic to discuss certain things about what made him great for us. And I think this very fact brings me joy and happiness, and that's called Shraddha. I think we all need to follow him just to make ourselves happy. That's all I want to share, because a lot of monks are waiting to share their insight of the Buddha. So thank you, Bhante Sanatpal, for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante Jinananda, for bringing that up, because you actually brought up a very interesting point. How even today, if you read most of the books, modern books, they are telling a story, a personal experience, and actually, I think knowingly or unknowingly, people got into this storytelling from the Buddha, maybe. If you read a book today, they say, okay, this is what I have went through. This is the kind of lifestyle I had. And they're trying to show the self-transformation that self-transformation, the method was first taught by the Buddha in the history, I think, according to my understanding. I don't know, maybe someone else can say something else too. So maybe we can discuss more about this later. So let's go to Bhante Pemaratana from Pittsburgh. I know, Bhante Pemaratana, you're not only a Buddhist monk in the Theravada tradition, but you're also an academic. You pursued your studies up to your PhD in religious studies, and you were lecturing. So how do you see, like as an academic, how do you see the Buddha? What makes the Buddha great?
Yeah, my reverential greetings to all the monks and the nuns, and it's great to be part of this wonderful discussion. Yes, Bhante, when fortunately, we have a lot of discourses of the Buddha. As a religious teacher, Buddha lived for 45 years after his enlightenment. And therefore, we have a lot of records, records of the discussion. And interestingly, there are also direct statements of the Buddha about his life. He has explained how he came to the realization that he got. And so we are very fortunate to have them. And one of the great joy that I get in my readings is actually reading these sutras and try to understand before becoming the Buddha, and what kind of struggle he had to go through, and then after he became the Buddha, then he still, how he really presented his teachings to others. And the one thing that is really fascinating to me is his on one hand, he has transcended all the categories, and then on the other hand, he's able to use conventions and all different categories and including language for his task. So on one hand, he realized that he taught that language is a construction, our concepts are limited, and we can transcend all these categories. We can transcend all those categories and make our mind unconditioned. But at the same time, when you want to share, when you want to encourage others and teach and communicate his teachings, he had to come back to these very concepts and categories and language that he taught that are limited. So I think Buddha was so clever in using that. I think in that important sutra called Drona Sutra, we find that Buddha was asked by that Brahmin Drona that are you a deva? Are you a divine being? Are you a semi-divine being or Gandharva, or are you a demon? And when Buddha said no to all these questions, and then he said, are you a human being? So in that situation, Buddha even said that, no, I'm not an ordinary human being. And then Buddha explained that I have transcended all these classifications. So the mind of the Buddha has reached to a point that mind cannot be classified into any available classes of beings. That's what we call the Buddha, right? Yeah. And you have to invent a new term to refer to such a mind, such a person. So their Buddha say that you can call me the Buddha. I'm not an ordinary human being. Maybe you can call me an extraordinary human being, but I'm not a human being either, because my mind cannot be categorized, cannot be classified into even to human form, even to divine form, any other forms. Any available classes of beings are not applicable to his mind. So he has reached to that level of unconditioned state, that level of transcendences. And that's what we call the Buddha. And what we call ourselves Buddhist or Buddha, or maybe Buddhist monks and lay people. And we are supposed to be people who actually try to achieve that transcendence, that try to achieve that state where we will not even be divine beings, we will not be any kind of being, actually, transcending all the classifications that are available, because then mind is unfathomable and unconditioned, has no attachment to any form. So that's the kind of transcendence that Buddha has achieved. But then look at his life. Although he has transcended to that level, but then of course, he started his teaching career, and he talked to farmers, talked to all different classes of people, and then he's again down to the earth, and then he becomes such a pleasant person. And the reason for the Buddhism to flourish in northern India at that time is not is one main reason is this profundity of his teaching, like is the applicability of his teaching to any person's life, and explaining this vulnerability that all of us are prone to experience suffering. But at the same time, what important other quality that helped the Buddhism to flourish in northern India at that time was the Buddha's own personality, and so he was using the language, he's using these categories, but knowing that they are limited. He has transcended all these things, but he still make use of those language, those concepts. And so one important example would be that King Pasenadi Kosala, one of the Buddha's friends, and he and then of course we find that other people like Sonadanda, other Brahmins who were close friends with the Buddha, and they explain the nature of the Buddha, how Buddha interact with society, and how he trained disciples. So there, I like to share with you the few things that they told about the Buddha, the way that the Buddha's social life. And they said Buddha is ehisagatavadi, means the Buddha is always welcoming. He's ready to talk to anyone, and he's always welcoming and receiving people and welcoming and ready to meet anyone irrespective of the time. So he has that attitude of openness, ehisagatavadi, welcoming. And then he also always is smiling.
Yeah.
Sammodaka, like Sakilo, is very friendly, having a smile on his face. And Abha Kutiko, right? He doesn't have like a frowning face. He's always, smiling and approachable. And the other one is Pubba Bahasi. He's the first to talk. Whenever he meets someone, he's the first one to talk. And he doesn't wait the other person to talk and start a discussion. He's very humble and opening, and he will talk with anyone. He's the first one to talk in a conversation. So I can see when I pay respect to the Buddha, and when I was sitting in front of the Buddha statue, it's really amazing for me to reflect. On one hand, he has this transcendent, unfathomable quality that he has gone beyond all this classification and categories. And on the other hand, he's so practical and is so down to earth. So that maintaining that dual quality is really amazing thing to me. I cannot stop thinking and contemplating of that great quality. Whenever I sit in front of the Buddha statue, I always think about it.
Yeah, I think these are some great points you have brought up, Bhante Pevaratana. It's like, Buddha actually, what he did was he gave a new interpretation. That is the greatness about him, I guess. Like even the term Buddha, Arhat, the karma, dharma, these were prevalent words at the time. And then there's a Buddha, he said, okay, you can call me the Buddha. Why you can call me the Buddha? Because the weaknesses that normally everyone has in myself, I have removed those weaknesses, and that's why I'm called the Buddha. So those weaknesses are seen and found in other beings like Brahma, Deva, Yaka, Gandharva, and that's why he said you cannot identify me as Deva, Brahma, Manusa, or Gandharva. And then he gave the reason why he calls himself the Buddha, because he removed those weaknesses. And also those 3 points that you have actually brought is so interesting. Like Buddha is so welcoming, smiling. He's the first one to talk, right? This is the great solution. I think we see, maybe we have inherited those qualities from these teachings, and we can see this we put that into practice, and you can see how people get so much attracted to you. When you welcome someone with the biggest smile, and when you say, when you become the first one to say hello or good morning, good day, people love it. But people nowadays don't like to talk to other people, right?
So
I
they
think
wait, they're waiting to be, they wait other person to start talking.
yeah, this interesting point you have brought up. Thank you so much. So now let's go to Venerable Trudeau from Florida. Venerable Trudeau, I know recently I have seen a little video clip how you even went to a gaming center or shop and you broadcasted something talking about how the mindset. So I found that very hilarious plus interesting and very profound. So you as a young American Buddhist monk, how do you see the Buddha as great?
Salutations to all the most venerables and bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, and aryas that's present here today. So, so first and foremost, I think everyone here, if you haven't seen my YouTube or TikTok, I have all sorts of ingenious ways to reach young people and to spread the teachings in a way that they can understand clearly and to be curious into the teachings of the Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
And so you will often see me in a Walmart or somewhere that is very American-like settings and talking about nirvana and enlightenment, especially connecting video games and enlightenment together. So I invite you guys to get really curious to look at it. The Buddha was a great man. How is he great? Well, you look at his patience, his level of patience and endurance in his life. And we look at our lives, what we're going through. And sometimes lay people say, it's unbearable. I've lost my whole family to COVID. Why are all these shootings happening? Children are dying. There is injustice. There is pain, sorrow, lamentation everywhere. And it seems like to no end and no breaks in between about what is going on. On YouTube, anyone can just put in the word shooting and you realize that every day there's about 3 shootings across America. So what does that mean? And of course, these are things outside of us. When we look at things that is inside of us, when we see directly what we are going through ourselves as human beings, we see that we have our health to take care of, bills to pay, children to take care of, and so on and so on. And when we look at the shrine in our homes, when we go to see the Buddha at a monastery, and we look at him and we reflect and we humble ourselves in paying reverence to him, we realize that the beginning of his life, he endured with one of the greatest losses any human can ever experience was the loss of his mother 7 days after he was born. Reflecting on that alone, one closes one's eyes and imagine if we were to lose our mother, our caregiver, 7 days after we're born. That alone is unbearable to just think of. We reflect in the middle of his life and we see that after his enlightenment, he just, listen, had he not fully gained enlightenment, full enlightenment, one could say it was really rough if he had not gained enlightenment. But he dealt with it very skillfully, including getting political. A sangha that was getting rowdy, with monks that is breaking all 10 precepts. He had to be stern and disciplined with them. And of course, towards the end of his life, you see that he dealt with old age, decay, disease with his body. And that is what's so impressive about him, is that he led by example, and he is proof that a human can in fact achieve full enlightenment in this lifetime. I find joy to my heart with the many times that they have tried him throughout the duration of his life, when the elephant charged at him and he was unmoved by anything that was good, unmoved by anything that was negative. And how if we emulate that into our lives, and the many things that happen in our lives when we go to work, at home or school, and people call us names and you are this, you are that. And when they do this to us, when they shoot bows and arrows at us, how are we going to respond? Are we going to keep noble silence like the Buddha did? Are we going to practice right speech as he taught? And, no one exempt praise or blame. And when you, it's just so joyful that when you go to bed at night, and when you have breaks, at any time in between, people read all sorts of useless fictions that has nothing to do with anything, that helps them escape reality. Again, running away from pain, when the Buddha taught us to deal with pain directly and head on. And so, I guess for me is that I like to read the biography of the Buddha from different authors from time to time, to revisit his life from time to time, as it gives me tremendous amount of strength, endurance, patience necessary as a young teacher to lead other young lay people through these most enduring times. And it is such reassuring that though it's changing the way that it is, his teachings that he left us can and will withstand the test of time. I have unshakable faith and confidence. There's no doubt about it. You analyze through the many wars that the Buddha sunk his hands into in negotiating and delegating with the great kings. Sometimes the kings had a very violent mind, violent intentions. You see some of these things, and clearly he prevailed. Now, there were times where he did not prevail, right? There were times where things did not go a certain way that the Buddha would like for it to go, and that's okay too. And for us to see that certain things is okay too, and sometimes we just have to bring it back and to cultivate Buddhahood within us in the most trying times of our life. So, it's this subject, it brought me so much joy when I got the message of today's subject. What makes him great, and what makes us great is that we take steps, we follow his methods, we follow his undeniable, irrefutable methods that he left us. It is so easy. He couldn't make it any easier for us. You have no idea how many people from different religions knock on my door, because obviously it's not working for them. It's not, because it does not teach you the how, when in fact the teachings of the Buddha teaches you the how to treat your wife, how to save money, how to save for a rainy day, how to let go things not meant for you, how to be unattached to one that you love. I have found and concur with Venerable Jayasaro that the teachings of the Buddha is the most effective and comprehensive educational system the world has ever seen. It is my job as a monk to prove the Buddha wrong. I have not been able to do that.
Well, you can try. Buddha gave an open invitation.
He did in the Kalama Sutta.
Yeah.
And I am very impressed with all of the Venerables' backgrounds today. And I just wanted to share a little bit of my backgrounds. I have a very keen eyes. I have a very investigative eyes when it comes to such teachings. 15 years, more than 15 years of clinical experience in both law and medicine as an interpreter. 4 years of college in psychology and mastering the art of psychotherapy and merging cognitive behavioral therapy with Buddhist philosophy so that everyone can make sense of their world right now. And psychology is just, psychology is now validating and realizing the Buddha was right. From a neuropsychology, neurology standpoint, they realized that everything that he taught, even though, see, back in the day, the Buddha said, sit, meditate, don't ask any questions. And people did it. People did it because they respected him, they believed him, they trusted the teacher, and they trusted the process. So therefore, they achieved enlightenment just like him, become arahants.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. I think, Venerable Trudeau, thank you for bringing up that. To know that, I think we all have to read the Theragata, Udana, Pali, and there are plenty of stories, right? So I think we can talk about that in detail. So I'm right now, I'm kind of, thank you, Venerable Trudeau, for bringing up a lot of great qualities of the Buddha, especially you started with the endurance. I think Buddha endured a lot in this journey, that the path to enlightenment. And it's only the Buddha who could do that, to become the Buddha. So now I'm curious. I know Bhante Kusala raised his hand to talk about something and from a sutra. And before that, I know Bhante Varapanyo raised his hand. I know Bhante Varapanyo, you travel a lot. You were in Myanmar, then from there to Vietnam, from there another country, now you're back in the United States. You're a young American Buddhist monk too. So what made you to become a monk, and how do you see the Buddha as great? Unmute yourself, Bhante.
He's also visited me. That's how much he's traveled.
Okay. Hello, Venerables. Happy to be here with the Sangha. I think that what the Buddha represent for me is and maybe, I just kind of fall into Buddhism according to causes and conditions. It was really the fact that I couldn't get involved as I wanted to, that I fall further and down the path of Buddhism and meditation. It's kind of falling into the good trap of skillful activity, the good trap of sila, samadhi, and panya. And that was this kind of mouse of myself that was looking around for the cheese of ending suffering, for my suffering to come to an end. And I was lucky enough to get caught in enough traps where I made some progress, some success in freeing my constant desire and fear-based activities. So I think what the Buddha represent for me is the capacity for complete compassion and complete wisdom that is non-conditional. So while other religions have this kind of idea of ultimate compassion or ultimate wisdom, it is coming from some kind of higher being. There might be a sadhu or a yogi who has this ultimate compassion or wisdom, but it's because they got it from Krishna, or they got it from Jagannath, or they got it from some Hindu higher being, higher entity. And the same with, liberation or freedom in Christianity. Sure, it's possible to become a saint. It's possible to experience absolute compassion, but it's coming from somewhere else. And in Buddhism, what the Buddha represents for me is this humanness of non-conditional compassion. And of course, the very famous story of the serial killer who became a monk. It wasn't that this was some kind of reformed serial killer or that he was, he'd kind of taken a break and was reevaluating his choices and getting into yoga and becoming vegetarian, he came to the Buddha with blood on his hands. He came to the Buddha in absolute evil, absolute hatred, absolute violence. Just came from butchering men, women, and children in the village down the road. And now he's going to come and butcher the Buddha. And similar to how the Buddha stops this elephant with his compassion, stampeding elephant, stop with his metta, the Buddha also accept and embrace this marauding killer, the most evil that you can imagine. And sure, the Buddha expressed some kind of spiritual power at that time, but that's not really what the story is about. The story is about the Buddha's compassion and the Buddha's ability to non-conditionally express wisdom in any given situation. So that's what continues to inspire me and kind of invigorate me on my path, is that that this is a human capacity, and that in some way, even the Buddha's enlightenment is something special, but it's a matter of waking up. It's a matter of seeing the truth. And the truth is something that we can't really avoid. We can't really cover up or change. It's something we kind of have to accept. And for me, there's an inclusivity and an accessibility that the Buddha represents, that I continue to find value in. And so I continue to follow the Buddha and this limitless humanness that he can represent, or this capacity that we as humans have. I think a lot of people forget, it's easy to forget, that this, shining golden statue of the Buddha behind us, it is powerful and it is meaningful in the modern time because it represents that we can become enlightened. That's the meaning of it. Not that the Buddha was so great and we should worship him until the sun goes down and doesn't come back up, but we follow the Buddha. We pay respect to the Buddha because he represents what we as human beings can do, and how we can live, and he sets that standard. Because also maybe some philosophies have this mindset. Some Western philosophy or some Hindu philosophy has this mindset of absolute compassion, but the Buddha represents the embodiment of that. And the Buddhist monks and nuns, the Buddha Sangha, represents the living continuation of that aspiration, and in many cases the embodiment of that today. So that's what I get from the Buddha. It's what he represents to me.
Thank you, Bhante Varapanyu. I think you pointed out very interesting characteristics of the Buddha. Buddha never abandoned anyone who came to him on his path. He saw their special or the privilege of becoming or transforming their life and becoming enlightened, and then he just used his the strong mind, Buddha mind, to help them become liberated from their own sufferings and pains, like Angulimala, the murderer, the killer who became a saint, right? That's another interesting characteristic of the Buddha. So I think we can learn so much from there. And I think we just have 5 minutes to go. And I know Bhante Kusala has something very interesting to talk about. And I'm also kind of curious, we have a Tibetan monk, Venerable Lama Tenzin Dakpa. I know, how do you see the Buddha in that Vajrayana tradition? I know you highly regard the Hisono Dalai Lama and the Karmapa and other teachers. And in Tibetan tradition, in Vajrayana tradition, how do you see the Buddha?
Good evening, Venerable Bhante Saranapala. Thank you for inviting me to this group. And also I would like to send my Greetings to all the venerables here. And I'm extremely happy to see all of you here in Zoom, and also giving me this opportunity to speak. So, well, as we all know, that Buddha is an enlightened being who achieved every single quality and who managed to abandon every faults and mistakes. So that we call it enlightened being. But in other hand, I would like to consider that as the best human being, the perfect human being. So that tells that when a human being practice the right path, that you can achieve the highest level, the best human being. That's what I consider what Buddha achieved. And of course, we do have different explanations of what is his qualification and what is his wisdom and limitless compassion and loving kindness. Those are all unique to any other religious leaders. And yet, Buddha himself always say that don't accept my teachings just because I am a Buddha or I am Prince. He said, as a goldsmith tests gold, so you first listen my teaching and examining, and then if you find truth in it, accept. Otherwise, you don't have to. So, and also he says, sages does not wash away unwholesome deeds with the water, nor do they remove suffering of sentient beings with their hands. And neither do they transplant their own realization into others. It's by teaching the truth of suchness that they liberate beings. So Buddha is somebody who actually teach the truth, So that's why we all know the Four Noble Truths: truth of suffering, cause of suffering, truth of path, and truth of cessation. Basically, these are all truth. And he just, merely say the listen to the truth and practice the truth. He did not say, if you believe me and you respect me, then you will liberate, And so that's why the Buddhists, and Tibetan Buddhism, and I think all the Buddhism, we believe so much into karma, karmic cause and effect. That's, I think, one of the unique things that Buddha's teachings, because in this world, there are many religions, and most of the religion believe that there is a creator, an external God. But Buddhism, we do not believe a God that has a power to create everything. We do believe, or Buddha, in Buddha's teaching, he says, everything coming from its own cause and conditions. So that's why what you have done, it's a cause for what you have, and what you're doing right now is a cause and conditions for what you're going to get in the future, So that's why he talks about interdependent originations. I think these things makes Buddha very special. And also, I don't want to just take too much time, because we don't have much time at the end, at the last. And he said, every sentient being have the potential to achieve enlightenment, just as I did. So his last word, he said, he told his disciples, told the world that Prince Siddhartha came, and who practiced the Dharma, and he meditate 6 years, and then he achieved enlightenment, and then he passed into parinirvana. So these things actually have very special messages. So Prince Siddhartha was he was a prince, but he was just an ordinary being,
I
he
think
did not
you
born
brought
with
very,
all these wisdom and qualities, but he studied. So therefore, we are just as a Prince Siddhartha. If we practice, we can achieve Buddha. And then the important thing, another thing is, he left all the teachings behind him so that we can learn and we can take the path that he took.
Mm.
So I just want to stop here and thank you,
Yeah,
everyone.
no, thank you, Venerable Lama Tenzin Dakpa, for sharing your beautiful insights with us. As you said, you know, Buddha said, we all have the capacity to become enlightened. It's not just me. Anyone can become Buddha. But the thing is, you have to undertake the path. So this is a great idea. And I can, Bhante Kusala, do you want to say anything else for 1 minute, maybe?
Well, I like how the discussion, if I like if we can end the discussion with Venerable Lama's comment, you know, that anyone has the potential to become enlightened. What I wanted to share earlier was the Buddha's own response that, you know, when Brahmin Dorna on the way to Utkatta and Setavya met the Buddha was on the way to I think one of the cities. And when he asked, you know, are you a human? Are you a divine being? Are you a Brahma? Are you a human being? Are you a Gandhabha, which is a divine musician? At that time, the Buddha said no to all of them. He said, I'm not even a human being. So the Brahmin Drona was confused, you know, who are you? At that point, the Buddha said, you know, I'm like a lotus, you know, unsmeared by the mud. I am called the Buddha to the world. So when his cousin Devadatta wanted to be the Buddha, we could see that, you know, without having those qualities, you aren't becoming one. You are not going to become the Buddha. And sometimes people say the Buddha taught some stuff negative like suffering. But I think we need to say that Buddha never said life is suffering. The Buddha said there is suffering in existing in a cycle of birth and death. And he showed happiness and the highest happiness to the world. And that is how I see the Buddha. Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante Kusala. I think the greatest contribution the Buddha made to the world, even today, the scientists and doctors are following that method, the Four Noble Truths. There's a problem, there's a cause of the problem, and there's a solution to the problem, and then there is a path, a way to solve that problem. I think that method was the greatest contribution made to the world by the Buddha. That is so great about him. And also another thing is I would like to emphasize how Buddha embraced everyone. You know, he said, it's not just me, wish the happiness to everyone. Liberate everyone. Sabbe satta bhavantu sukhita. May all sentient beings be happy. It's not just me and you, may all sentient beings. This is so a unique quality of the Buddha. So I want to end this today's bi-weekly discussion by reading a comment I think which is very interesting. Dr. Mala Fernandez said, what a lovely discussion session. I started to have my late lunch, but even got so absorbed to listen to this amazing discussion. I felt full. My mind, I guess, made my physiology to think I have had an exquisite meal. I'm so thankful to Venerable Madhav Sarunapala Thero for sending me this Zoom link. I was doing some tax-related work today, but I'm so happy that I put my time to listen to this session. Thank you for all Venerables. Tonight, when I worship, I will reflect on all these beautiful ideas, characteristics, facts, etc. Thank you so much. That is the great the comment. Thank you so much. So I'm very grateful to all of you, Venerable bhikkhus and bhikkhunis and friends. Thank you for your great contribution. Thank you for sharing your insights with us. You know, this was in fact a great discussion. I think Bhante Ji could have been very happy to listen to this discussion. Maybe later on I'm going to send a link to Bhante Ji of today's discussion and see what he has to say. So thank you so much. Now let me invite Venerable Sarunapala Thero from Vancouver to recite over the Patimokkha verses.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa සබ්බ පාපස්ස අකරණං කුසලස්ස උපසම්පදා සචිත්ත පරියෝදපනං ඒතං බුද්ධාන ශාසනං කන්ති පරමං තපෝතිතික්ඛා නිබ්බානං පරමං වදන්ති බුද්ධා නහි පබ්බජිතෝ පරූපඝාති සමනෝ හෝති පරං විහෙට්ඨයන්තෝ අනුපවාදෝ අනුපඝාතෝ පාතිමොක්ඛේච සංවරෝ මත්තඤ්ඤුතාච භත්තස්මින් පන්තංච සයනාසනං අධිචිත්තේච ආයෝගෝ ඒතං බුද්ධාන ශාසනං
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Bhante Saranapala, for beautifully reciting this over the Patimokkha verses. It's so relaxing, so soothing, and you have such a beautiful voice. Thank you so much. And once again, I'm very grateful to all of you for coming together for this bi-weekly Sutra discussion on Zoom platform. And this was a unique discussion. And may all blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha be with you. May Devas, celestial beings, continue to protect all of you with the divine blessings for your health and safety. And I will see you all in 2 weeks' time for another amazing bi-weekly discussion. Until then, all of you stay well and happy. Good night. Bye-bye.